The sound of scissors snapping was the first thing that jolted me from the kitchen. At first, I thought it was nothing, maybe my son coloring with paper crafts, like he usually did at Grandma's house. But then came the sharp yelp, a small cry, and the unmistakable gasp of real pain. I rushed into the living room and the sight froze me. My son, 8-year-old Caleb, sat rigid in the chair, tears streaking his cheeks. His brown hair, once neatly trimmed, was hacked uneven, jagged patches sticking up like he'd been mauled. My sister, Amber, stood behind him with the scissors, her grin sharp, her hand fisted in his hair. Strands littered the carpet. "Stop! You're hurting him," I shouted, pushing forward. "Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video." Amber didn't flinch. She tightened her grip and yanked Caleb's head back. The scissor blades grazed his scalp so close a thin red line welled where she'd scraped too hard. Caleb whimpered, his little hands gripping the arms of the chair. "Oops," Amber sneered, her eyes flashing. "Guess I slipped." Before I could rip the scissors away, Mom's laughter rang out from the sofa. She clutched her mug of coffee, shaking her head like this was comedy. "He looks better ugly anyway. That boy was too soft. Consider it an upgrade." Dad chuckled from the recliner, not even glancing up from his newspaper. "Better he learns to live like trash now instead of later. Don't waste time polishing garbage." I froze, the words sinking like knives. My parents, my blood, watching their grandson humiliated and hurt, laughing. Caleb's wide, terrified eyes met mine, pleading without words. Something inside me snapped. I lunged, ripping Amber's hand away from his head, shoving her back so hard, the scissors clattered to the floor. I wrapped my arms around Caleb, pressing his shaking body against me. "You're insane," I hissed at her. Amber smirked, brushing hair off her shirt. "Oh come on, it was just a haircut. Don't be dramatic." "Until he bled," I barked, my voice trembling with fury. Mom rolled her eyes. "Children bleed. He'll survive. Maybe it'll teach him not to act so precious." Dad lowered the paper just enough to sneer. "You spoil him too much. That's why he cries like a baby. Letting Amber toughen him up does him a favor." I held Caleb tighter as his small frame trembled against me. His scalp was raw, his pride shredded, and their laughter filled the room like smoke choking me out. Something broke in me that moment. Not a crack, not a splinter, but a complete collapse of whatever scraps of family loyalty I had left. I didn't scream anymore. I didn't argue. I just stood there, shaking, memorizing every smirk, every cruel word, every chuckle at my son's expense. Amber twirled the scissors between her fingers, her eyes glinting with satisfaction, and tossed them onto the coffee table. "You should thank me. No one will mistake him for special now. He finally looks like what he is." Caleb buried his face into my chest, and I kissed the top of his head, whispering, "It's okay, you're safe." But inside, my mind wasn't whispering, it was screaming. That was the moment I knew. Forgiveness would never be on the table. Not after this. They thought this was funny. They thought he was trash. They thought cutting him down literally would make me bow. But instead, they lit a fire I had no intention of putting out. And for the first time, I looked at my parents and my sister, not as family, but as enemies. Enemies who had no idea what I was about to take from them. I spent that night sitting on the edge of Caleb's bed, running my fingers gently over the jagged patches of hair left behind. His little body finally stilled in sleep, but every so often, he whimpered and twitched, like he was reliving the scissors tugging at his scalp. I had washed the small cut, bandaged it, and told him he was still handsome, still perfect. He had nodded weakly, but the light in his eyes had dimmed. He had seen something no child should see: his own family delighting in his pain. And that was the part I couldn't forgive. The next morning, I came into the kitchen to find Amber tossing the scissors casually into the drawer, humming like nothing had happened. Mom was buttering toast, Dad scrolling on his phone. "Morning, Raggedy," Amber smirked at me, using the nickname she'd coined after Caleb's hacked haircut. "Your boy should thank me. No one's gonna mistake him for a pretty doll anymore." Mom chuckled, sipping her coffee. "He actually looks like he belongs now. Fits the family image." Dad grunted without looking up. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before parading him around like he's better than anyone. Dogs don't wear crowns." The room tilted, but I gripped the counter hard enough to steady myself. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the coffee mug I was clutching. I just stared at them, memorizing their faces, committing their words to the notebook that now lived permanently in my purse. Every cruel phrase was a nail, every laugh, a hammer, and I was building something sharp. For weeks, they treated Caleb's butchered haircut like a family joke. Amber posted photos on her social media, captioned, Toughening up my little nephew, you're welcome. Mom chimed in with comments like, doesn't he look more real now? So cute. Dad added, likes and laughing emojis. At school, Caleb kept his hood up. When teachers asked why, he mumbled, just cold. But I saw the way kids whispered, the way his confidence shrank. At home, Amber wouldn't stop. She'd grab the back of his hood and tug him down, mimicking the scissors sound with her fingers. Snip, snip, trash boy, she teased. Mom laughed so hard she cried. Dad told her to save some for later. Each time, Caleb flinched like he was being cut all over again. And each time, I bit back the urge to scream, to hit, to burn the whole house down with them in it. Instead, I waited. I started watching them closely. Amber's vanity was her entire identity. Her long, glossy hair, her perfect selfies, her obsession with control. Mom lived for her weekly bridge games, where she bragged about her perfect family to women who only half believed her. Dad's world revolved around the garage. His tools, his reputation as the fixer, the one who could repair anything. And that's when it hit me. They had reduced Caleb to trash because they believed everything beautiful, everything strong, everything worth pride belonged only to them. If they thought they could cut away my son's dignity like hair, then I would cut away the things they clung to most. But I wouldn't expose them publicly. No, that was too easy, too brief. I would take them apart in private, until their laughter turned to begging. The first step was patience. I smiled when Amber mocked me. I nodded when Mom bragged. I even fetched Dad his tools when he barked orders. They thought I was cowed, that I had learned my place. But at night, when the house slept, I planned. I checked Amber's vanity drawers where she kept her imported shampoos and treatments. I checked Mom's bridge bag, stuffed with cards, her score sheets, her bragging photos. I checked Dad's garage, lined with wrenches, drills, every polished piece of equipment he showed off like trophies. I knew what to touch. I knew where to hit. Every cruel word about Caleb hardened my resolve. Every smirk sharpened my aim. By the time Caleb's hair started to grow back, my plan was ready. And just like Amber's scissors, my revenge was going to be slow, deliberate, and close enough to scar. It started with Amber. One evening, she was humming in front of her mirror, brushing out her long blonde hair, the one thing she treasured more than anything. She snapped selfies, pouting her lips, flipping her hair over her shoulder. This is why I'll always be better than you, Hannah, she sneered, catching my reflection in the doorway. Some people are just born beautiful. I didn't argue, I just watched. That night, when she left her straightener plugged in on the vanity, I unplugged it and swapped the heat-setting dial. The next morning, I heard the scream. Amber burst from her room, clutching a clump of singed brittle hair, her face pale with shock. On my hair. My hair is ruined. The glossy strands she worshipped had burned unevenly, leaving jagged patches. She ran to Mom, crying, fix it, fix it. Mom's gasp turned into tears. Well, now you know how it feels. Dad chuckled from the recliner. Guess trash runs in the bloodline after all. Amber looked at me, suspicion blazing. But she couldn't prove it, and I only smiled faintly, stroking Caleb's hair growing in fuller, stronger, a quiet defiance against them all. Next was Mom. She packed her bridge bag every Wednesday with a flourish, rehearsing gossip and sharpening her bragging lines. My perfect daughter this, my brilliant husband that, she'd say in the mirror, blowing kisses to her reflection. So one Wednesday while she showered, I slipped into her room. Inside her bag, I swapped the score sheets for ones. I had rewritten false records that made it look like she'd lost every game for months. I tucked in photos too, not of her bragging dinners, but candid shots I'd taken of her yelling at me, sneering at Caleb. That afternoon, she came home hollow-eyed, her voice sharp. They laughed at me. They said I was a fraud. Dad barked a laugh. What did you expect? You're not as special as you think. Amber, still fussing with her uneven hair, muttered, guess we're all falling apart. Mom turned on me, suspicion wild in her eyes. But again, she had nothing solid, and I sat there quiet, feeding Caleb soup, acting as though nothing had changed. Then came Dad. The garage was his temple. Every wrench lined up, every drill gleaming, every tool wiped after use. He'd bragged to neighbors, a man's worth is in his hands. Mine fix anything. So one evening, I carefully swapped his prized socket wrench set with a mismatched warp set I'd bought at a thrift store. I loosened the screws on his drill, just enough to make it sputter and stall. The next day, he stormed inside, greased on his hands, rage in his eyes. They laughed at me. He spat. The guy said I don't even know how to hold a wrench. Said I ruined the job. Amber smirked. despite her broken hair. Guess you're not the fixer anymore. Mom snapped. Don't take it out on us. You're useless. For the first time, I saw the cracks in his pride. The same cracks he'd tried to carve into me. And that's when it happened. They turned on each other. Amber called Mom pathetic. Mom called Dad useless. Dad barked that Amber was nothing but a burden. Their laughter was gone, replaced by snarls and accusations, each of them crumbling without the things they once held over me. And finally they came to me. It was late. The house quiet except for the sound of their footsteps shuffling into the kitchen, where I sat with Caleb. Hannah. Mom's voice trembled, stripped of its usual venom. Fix this. Help me get back my reputation. Dad's jaw clenched. You're good with tools. Fix my drill. Help me before the guys throw me out. Amber clutched her ruined hair, eyes red. You know how to make it better. Please, don't let me live like this. I stared at them, my notebook open on the table. Their cruel words written in black ink. He looks better ugly anyway. Better he learns to live like trash. I tapped the page. You wrote your own punishment. I just handed it back. Their mouths opened and closed, desperate, begging, but no words changed the truth. I stood, pulling Caleb close. His hair had grown in thick and strong now, no scars left from Amber scissors. He looked up at me with steady eyes, no longer afraid. And for the first time in years, I felt taller than all of them. They had cut my son until he bled, laughed as if he was trash. Now they were the ones in pieces, and I didn't need scissors to do it. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.